this video, we will discuss about maximum subarray. So what is the question? Given an integer array nums, find the subarray with the largest sum and return its sum. So what they're saying is that you are given an array of integers in your input which can contain both negative and positive integers. You need to find out such a subarray from this array whose sum is maximum, and whatever is that maximum sum that you need to return. Now what is a subarray? A subarray is nothing but a continuous part of our array, right? So that subarray you need to find out whose sum is maximum, right? So now let's see how are we going to approach this. So if you see here, this is my array given to me. If let us suppose I am considering this much subarray, right? What will be the sum of this much subarray? So it will be 4 minus 3, 1, 1 plus 1, 2, and 2 minus 2, 0. So the sum of this much subarray is coming out to be 0. Now this subarray was starting with minus 2, right? Now let's suppose I remove it. I don't start my subarray from minus 2. Instead, I start my subarray from this element 1. Now in this case, what will be my sum? It will be 4 minus 3, which is 1, and 1 plus 1, which is 2. So in that case, my sum will become 2. So when I was taking minus 2, when I was starting my subarray with minus 2, at that time I was getting a smaller sum. But when I started my subarray from a positive integer, I removed this minus 2. In that case, I was getting a larger sum, right? So can we say that whatever will be our maximum sum subarray, that should not start, that should not start or end with a negative element, right? With a negative element. So here you saw that when I took minus 2, I was getting a smaller sum. But when I removed this minus 2 and started my subarray from here, then I was getting a greater sum. Now similar thing applies for the last element also. If the last element in my subarray is negative, so let's suppose this subarray was ending here, then in that case this minus 1 would have been decrementing my sum by 1, right? But if I ended my subarray here itself, then I would get a greater sum, right? So whatever will be our maximum sum subarray, that should not start or end with a negative element, right? So now let's focus on this first element of our array, which is minus 2. So now this minus 2 is an element of our array, and can we say that this minus 2 is in itself a subarray of length 1? See, what I'm saying is that this minus 2 is an element of our array, right? And it is also a subarray of length 1, right? So here I told that the maximum sum subarray should not start or end with a negative element, right? And this negative element is a single element which we are referring, and the single element is also a subarray of length 1. So can we say that your maximum sum subarray should not start or end with a subarray which has negative sum, right? Your maximum sum subarray should not start or end with a subarray which is having negative sum, right? So keeping these 2 points in mind, we will think of our approach. So now if you will come back to the array, so here the first element was minus 2. We are starting our maximum sum subarray from here. Now if you will consider this minus 2, this is negative, right? And the first point that we wrote was that our maximum sum subarray should not start or end with negative element. So we won't be starting our maximum sum subarray from here because this is a negative element. So we will start it from here. Now if this also would have been a negative element, then we would have gone to the next element, right? But here it is a positive element, so we will start from here. So at this point, what is the sum of our subarray? Our sum is 1. So we will keep the track of our current sum. So instead of sum, we can say our current sum. So our current sum is 1, and at the end we need to return the maximum sum, right? So we will also track the maximum sum till now. Initially that will be 0. Now when our current sum at this point is 1, then our maximum sum will also become 1, right? Now coming to the next element, so this is minus 3. Now what will your sum will be? 1 minus 3, that will be minus 2. Now if you see here that this sum is coming as negative, right? What was our point 2? That the maximum sum subarray should not start or end with a subarray having negative sum. This minus 2 sum is of these two numbers, 1 and minus 3, and we were starting our maximum sum subarray from here. So if this would have been my maximum sum subarray, then this subarray in the starting would be having a negative sum. So according to my point number 2, I won't be considering this subarray, right? So we will not consider this further. We will start our maximum sum subarray from here, right? So we will update our current sum to 0, right? Now the next element is 4. So now your sum will become 4 and maximum sum will also become 4. Then the next element is minus 1. So now your sum will become 3. Now here, if you see, our sum is positive. We took a negative number, but our sum is still positive because this element is in between the subarray, not in the starting or ending, right? So we can consider this, right? So we will consider this and our sum became 3. Now maximum sum was 4, so it will remain as is. Now what is the next element? It is 2. So now our sum will be 5 and our maximum sum will also be updated to 5. Then what is the next element? That is 1. So your current sum will become 6 now and your maximum sum will also become 6 now. Then what is the next element? That is minus 5. Now in this case, what will be your sum? 6 minus 5, that is 1. It is still positive and maximum sum will remain 6 only. Then the next element is 4. So now sum will become 5 and the max sum will remain as is. Now at the end, now we have traversed all the elements. What is your maximum sum? 6. And which was the subarray whose sum was equals to 6? This, right? 4 minus 1, 3, 3 plus 2, 5 and 5 plus 1, 6. So this was the subarray whose sum was equals to 6. But if you see, till till this point, till 4, our sum was positive only, right? But if you consider only this much subarray, what is the sum of this subarray? It is minus 1, right? So if this subarray would end here at 4, then this maximum sum subarray would be ending with a subarray whose sum is negative, right? And in point number 2, we told that it should not end with a negative sum subarray, right? So that's why this subarray is not participating and only this much subarray is giving us the sum as 6. And so this will be our answer, right? So now let's code it out. So first of all, we'll create a variable sum and we will initialize with the first value of our nums, and we'll create a second variable max sum, and this will also be initialized with the first value of nums. Now if in case your first value was negative, it was less than 0, then I said that our maximum sum subarray should not start with a negative number, right? So in that case, we will update the sum to 0. Okay. Then we'll start the iteration. So we'll start I from 1 till nums dot size and we'll do I plus plus. Then we will update the sum. So we will do sum plus equals to nums of I. Then we'll update our max sum. So max sum will be equals to max of sum comma max sum, right? Now if in case our sum becomes less than 0, right, then we'll update our sum to 0 because we won't be considering this subarray because its sum is negative. Then at the end, we will simply return the max sum, right? So now let's run this. So if in this case, you will see that we are only iterating once in our nums array. So the complexity of this will be order of n, where n is the size of your nums vector. So now let's submit this. So it got accepted. Thank you so much for watching.